Welcome to Glasgow. I'm Sylvia Knight from the Royal Meteorological Society and I'm in the Blue Zone at COP26. Yesterday, a 190-strong coalition agreed to both phase out coal power and end support for new coal power plants. That would be tremendously important for a global clean energy transition. Unfortunately, China, Australia and the USA are big names that were missing from this deal. We also watched an agreement being signed by various major players in the global tourism industry to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions associated with travel. Excitingly, the International Energy Agency, a body that advises governments about energy, has looked at the promises made at COP26 so far and calculated that the world will keep to a 1.8 degree centigrade rise in global temperatures if all the pledges have been made so far are carried out. If that's true, then that's already a huge improvement on the 2.7 degrees we were looking at before the conference began. Keeping the average global temperature at less than 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial temperatures has become a key target for climate negotiations. A 2018 report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, demonstrated that the worst impact of climate change can be avoided if the temperature rise is kept below 1.5 degrees. Small island developing states and least developed countries adopted the slogan 1.5 to stay alive. The 1.5 degree target is a very ambitious one. In 2020, the world was already over 1 degree warmer. If enough measures are put into place very rapidly, 1.5 degrees centigrade could still be achieved, even if we overshoot it temporarily and then drop back down. Achieving the 1.5 degrees centigrade target requires halving global emissions of greenhouse gases by 2030 and reaching net zero emissions by 2050. This means that most countries need to start dramatically reducing their carbon dioxide emissions right now. Science shows us that the longer we leave taking action, the more drastic the emissions reductions will need to be. Here in Glasgow, there will be a lot of pressure on the negotiators to update their pledges and set far tougher targets for their country's greenhouse gas emissions. Reaching net zero emissions by 2050 means that every year after 2050, we would need to remove at least as much carbon dioxide from the atmosphere as we put into it. And the best way to do this is to stop emitting it in the first place by using renewable or nuclear energy. If we can't achieve this completely, we need to improve ways of removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and locking it away in secure stores in the ground. Planting trees is only a temporary solution. When the trees die, the carbon they have turned into wood and leaves is slowly released back into the atmosphere. Today at COP and over the weekend, the focus is on youth and public empowerment and nature. Events throughout the days will demonstrate the critical role of empowering, educating and training in order to drive the climate action needed to keep 1.5 degrees alive. One message that's been coming through clearly in events over the past few days is a demand for countries to include their actions towards improving the climate literacy of school leavers in their NDCs, the nationally determined contributions I mentioned yesterday. Another message that I've heard is that the biggest barrier to improving climate literacy of school leavers is the climate literacy of the people in a country's education ministry. It's all a bit circular. The climate literacy of the people who control what is taught in schools has an impact on the knowledge and skills of school leavers, which in turn has an impact on how likely they are to take climate action, for example, through lobbying the politicians to do more about climate change. Something else which made me think was a statement that to make people take action, what they are hearing about needs to be about places near them, in space and in time. In other words, not about events that are in the remote past or in the distant future or in places far away from them. I wonder how that's reflected in what you've learnt about climate change in school. On Sunday, there are going to be 2 careers events in the Green Zone. If you're interested, the events will be live streamed on the COP26 YouTube channel. All around the world today, there will be school strikes for climate, including a large gathering of people here in Glasgow led by Greta Thunberg. On Saturday, we're expecting an even larger demonstration as part of the Global Day of Action for the Climate. There have been smaller demonstrations almost every day, and they've affected our ability to be able to get in and out of the event. If you think of any questions about how COP works or what it looks like being here over the weekend, and you'd like me to answer them in next week's bulletins, please ask your teacher to email them to education@rmets.org or to tweet @RMetS.